The all-species Veterinary Emergency Center on Space Station Gamma 9 had seen its fair share of chaos, but this was something special. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the doorway of the pristine white facility, unwrapping her contraband Earth burrito, while watching what could only be described as the most expensive temper tantrum in the galaxy unfold before her. "I absolutely refuse." Dr. Kudziktik's translucent antennae quivered with indignation, all four of them standing straight up like exclamation points. "Do you have any idea who I am? I have 7 PhDs from the most prestigious veterinary institutes in the Galactic Alliance. The recipient of this tirade, a towering, elegantly dressed alien diplomat, whose species Sarah couldn't quite place, somehow managed to look both apologetic and murderous at the same time. Their child, a smaller version with iridescent scales, clutched what appeared to be a giant purple space hamster to their chest. The creature's normally vibrant fur had taken on a sickly lavender hue, and it was making a sound that reminded Sarah of a garbage disposal trying to digest a spoon. "But doctor," the diplomat's translator crackled, "the veterinary code clearly states that all emergency cases must be—" "The code," Kaziktik interrupted, mandibles clicking rapidly, "does not require me to risk my professional reputation by touching that disease-ridden Gornaxian flesh-eater. Do you know what those creatures do? They consume living tissue. They're barely one step above parasites." Sarah took another bite of her burrito, tilting her head as she studied the supposedly terrifying creature. The space hamster chose that moment to let out what could only be described as a pathetic squeak hiccup, followed by a tiny burp that released a bubble of purple gas. The alien child burst into tears, their scales shifting from a peaceful blue to a distressed orange. "Please," the diplomat's translated voice wavered. "My child's beloved pet is suffering. Surely there must be something." "Nothing. I won't do it. I didn't spend 12 years studying xenoveterinary medicine to be disgraced by treating a—" Kudziktik paused dramatically, all 6 eyes narrowing. "Common pet." Sarah wadded up her burrito wrapper and tossed it into a nearby recycling unit, which chirped a happy, "Thank you for maintaining station cleanliness." She'd been on Gamma 9 for exactly 6 hours, and this was definitely not how she'd planned to make her entrance at her new job. But watching the stuck-up doctor essentially throw a professional hissy fit while a child's pet suffered was not how she planned to spend her evening either. "Pardon me," she said, stepping forward and brushing a few stray rice grains from her standard-issue medical uniform. "Dr. Sarah Chen, new Earth Specialist Veterinarian. Mind if I take a look?" Kudziktik's antennae swiveled toward her like radar dishes. "Earth Specialist? Oh, this is rich. And what exactly do you know about Gornaxian flesh-eaters?" Sarah pulled out her medical scanner, already moving toward the distressed pet and its worried owners. "Well, for starters," she said, glancing at her readings with raised eyebrows, "I know that this little guy isn't a flesh-eater at all, unless," she added with a small smile, "you count the way my childhood hamster used to absolutely demolish his lettuce." The scanner beeped and Sarah's smile widened. Oh, this was going to be interesting. Sarah's medical scanner chirped again, this time displaying a cascade of biochemical readings that made her eyebrows climb higher with each new data point. She glanced from the scanner to the suffering space hamster, then back to her half-eaten burrito, and finally to the increasingly agitated Dr. Kudziktik. "Well," the alien doctor demanded, antennae now twitching in what Sarah was pretty sure was smugness, "have you realized this is beyond your primitive Earth medical training yet?" "Actually," Sarah said, pulling a piece of lettuce from her burrito, "I've realized your Gornaxian flesh-eater is about as carnivorous as a butterfly at a vegan restaurant." She held the lettuce out to the purple creature, whose nose immediately started twitching. "See that? Classic herbivore response. The poor thing's a vegetarian." "Impossible." Kudziktik's mandibles clacked in rapid succession. "All documented specimens of Gornaxius maximus are apex predators. There are papers, studies, 700 years of research, and 0 actual observations of their eating habits in the wild, I'm guessing," Sarah interrupted, watching as the space hamster delicately accepted the lettuce leaf and began nibbling it with obvious relief. "Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. Your flesh-eater has a severe allergic reaction to the standard carnivore pet food you've been recommending." 2 of station security's finest chose that moment to march through the clinic's doors, their uniforms pristine and their expressions clearly indicating this wasn't their first doctor-diplomat rodeo of the day. "We received reports of a disturbance," the taller officer announced, hand resting on what looked suspiciously like a neural pacifier. "Dr. Kaziktik, would you like us to remove these individuals?" Kaziktik drew themselves up to their full height, all 6 eyes gleaming. "Yes, and please note in your report that I will be filing a formal complaint about humans interfering with proper medical—" "Oh, for heaven's sake," Sarah muttered, taking another bite of her burrito while simultaneously adjusting her scanner's settings. "Officers, before you do anything hasty, you might want to know that I'm currently treating a medical emergency, and since I'm now officially on staff as of—" she checked her watch, 6 hours and 23 minutes ago, "I have full authority to continue this treatment. Unless someone wants to explain to the station administrator why we violated Section 47B of the Medical Emergency Protocols." The security officers exchanged glances. The diplomatic family's scales shifted hopefully toward a more positive purple hue. Kaziktik's antennae went completely rigid. "You can't possibly," the alien doctor began. "I once treated a chihuahua that thought it was a tiger," Sarah said, now rapidly typing notes into her medical pad. "Poor little guy had convinced himself he needed raw meat and kept trying to take down gazelles at the zoo. This'll be fine." Now she turned to the diplomatic family. "When did you start feeding standard pet food to—" She checked the creature's registration tag. "Mr. Snuggles." "Mr. Snuggles," the translator crackled with confusion. "Sorry, force of habit. I specialized in exotic earth pets back home. Though technically," she added with a grin, "that now applies to all pets in space, doesn't it? From my perspective, every pet out here is exotic." Kaziktik made a sound like a tea kettle achieving nuclear fusion. "This is beneath me. 7 PhDs. 7. I won't stand here and watch you make a mockery of proper veterinary medicine with your earth methods." They stormed toward the door, pausing only to jab a finger appendage in Sarah's direction. "When that creature's true nature reveals itself, don't expect me to intervene." "Wouldn't dream of it," Sarah called after them. She turned back to her patients, both the distressed space hamster and its worried family. "Now let's talk about getting Mr. Snuggles here on a proper diet. I'm thinking we start with some basic allergy tests, and I've got just the burrito to help us figure this out." The security officers, clearly deciding this was above their pay grade, quietly backed out of the clinic. The last thing they heard was Sarah's cheerful voice explaining the surprising similarities between Earth hamsters and their galactic cousins when it came to their love of fresh vegetables. By the end of her first week, Sarah had turned Emergency Bay 3 into what she fondly called Earth Kitchen 2.0. The sterile counter space was covered with carefully labeled containers of Earth vegetables, grains and fruits, each one catalogued with both its Earth name and its closest galactic equivalent. "Okay, little guy," Sarah murmured, holding up a piece of tomato to her latest patient, a fluorescent orange creature that looked like a cross between a ferret and a disco ball. "Let's see if you're as fond of nightshades as your test results suggest." From the observation window, 3 alien veterinarians watched in horror as she hand-fed the creature. Their collective gasp when the disco ferret not only accepted the tomato, but purred in a way that made all the lights in the clinic flicker was audible even through the soundproof glass. "Notes," Sarah dictated to her medpad. "Patient shows positive response to Earth tomatoes. Bioluminescence increases by approximately 47% when happy. Also need to requisition sunglasses for staff." Behind her, Dr. Vixert, a newly graduated alien vet with only 3 PhDs, nervously cleared their throat. "Dr. Chen, are you certain this is sanitary? The medical protocols clearly state—" "The protocols," Sarah interrupted, now pulling out a carefully preserved lettuce leaf, "were written by people who never had to figure out why a parakeet was speaking French after eating spicy food. Sometimes you have to improvise." The emergency alert blared through Sarah's quarters at 0300 station time, its urgent tone suggesting this wasn't just another case of the quantum hiccups. She was halfway to the clinic before the message even finished playing. "Dr. Chen to Emergency Bay 1, code purple. Repeat, code purple." She found organized chaos when she arrived. 3 alien vets huddled around a diagnostic terminal, their appendages flying over holographic displays. In the center of the room, floating in a containment field, was the last thing Sarah expected to see, the Centaurian symphony serpent belonging to none other than Dr. Kaziktik. The creature was legendary in veterinary circles. It had won the Galactic Show of Shows for 6 consecutive years, its synchronized color-changing displays and melodic bioresonance, making it the most prestigious show pet in 3 spiral arms. Right now, though, it looked about as prestigious as a wet sock, its usually brilliant scales dulled to a sickly grey. Kaziktik paced nearby, all 4 antennae drooping. "We've tried everything, every test, every treatment. Nothing works." Sarah approached the containment field, her eyes narrowing as she studied the serpent's symptoms. The colour loss was obvious, but there was something else, a peculiar twitching pattern she'd seen somewhere before. "How long has Princess Prismatic been sick?" she asked, already pulling out her scanner. "Her name is Harmonious Scalebearer of the 7th. Wait, how dare you give her one of your ridiculous Earth names at a time like this?" "Focus, Doctor, how long?" 3 days, Kaziktik admitted. "At first I thought it was just performance anxiety before next week's Interstellar Championship. But then the tremors started, and the compulsive humming." Sarah's scanner beeped. She frowned at the readings, then ran the scan again. "This can't be right. These symptoms, they're like 5 different Earth pet conditions combined. It's as if she's got kennel cough, catnip fever, and the zoomies all at once. Plus," she paused, something clicking in her mind. "When did you start storing Earth pet supplies in the back room?" Kaziktik went completely still. What? I would never..." "Because these readings showed traces of processed Earth grains, specifically the kind used in..." Sarah's eyes widened. "Oh my God, she got into dog treats, didn't she?" The silence in the room was deafening. Even the diagnostic terminals seemed to quiet down. "Impossible!" Kaziktik's mandibles clicked rapidly. "I would never allow such primitive..." "Bork!" The symphony serpent suddenly convulsed, emitting a sound that was decidedly unserpent-like. Its scales briefly flashed the pattern of a squeaky toy. Sarah crossed her arms. "Want to try that again?" Kaziktik deflated like a punctured balloon. It started as research, purely academic. I was investigating why your Earth methods were working so well. I acquired a few samples of Earth pet treats for analysis, and Harmonious, she found them. The effect was immediate. The way she responded, it was like nothing I'd ever seen. "Like catnip to cats," Sarah murmured, "or rather like milk bones to, well, everything apparently." Other pet owners began asking questions about her improved performances. They offered credits, substantial credits, for their own supply. One thing led to another. "So, let me get this straight," Sarah said, pinching the bridge of her nose. "You've been running a black market Earth treat operation while filing complaints about my unsafe Earth practices, and your prized show pet is literally a milk-bone addict?" The serpent chose that moment to burp, releasing a small cloud of sparkles that formed the shape of a dog bone before dissipating. "The irony is not lost on me," Kaziktik admitted quietly. Sarah sighed, already reaching for her medical supplies. "Right. First things first, we need to treat her withdrawal symptoms. Then we're going to have a long talk about proper treat dispensing protocols. And maybe," she added with a small smile, "about why those primitive Earth methods aren't so bad after all." You're going to help even after all my complaints?" "Of course I am. She's a pet who needs help." Sarah began preparing a treatment solution. "Besides, this explains so much about last week's epidemic of spontaneous balking among the station's show pets, though I have to ask." And she glanced at Kaziktik with raised eyebrows. "Of all the Earth treats to smuggle, you went with basic milk bones, not even the fancy gourmet stuff." Kaziktik's antennae twitched. The pricing markup on basic was much more profitable. "Unbelievable," Sarah muttered, trying not to laugh as she administered the first round of treatment. "Here I've been carefully portioning out organic vegetables, and you've been running an intergalactic milk-bone cartel right next door. This is definitely going in my research papers. The Underground Economy of Earth Pet Treats, a case study in interspecies addiction." The symphony serpent gave a pathetic whimper that somehow managed to sound exactly like a guilty Labrador. Word spread through Gamma 9 faster than a quantum transmission. Within 2 weeks, Sarah's clinic had a line that stretched past 3 cargo bays. She'd treated everything from a sentient slime mold with anxiety issues, just a little case of the blues, literally it turns blue when stressed, to a crystalline cat that had developed spots, mineral deficiency, nothing a little earth chalk couldn't fix. "Next up," she called out to her waiting room, checking her schedule, "Mr. Sparkles." A massive alien that looked like a walking sequoia tree stepped forward, cradling what appeared to be a ball of pure plasma. "Oh, this is definitely a Mr. Whiskers situation," Sarah muttered, reaching for her specialized heat-resistant gloves. "Let me guess, he's been acting a bit charged lately?" From his office down the hall, Dr. Kaziktik's indignant shriek at hearing another Earth pet name could probably be heard in 3 different solar systems. The final straw came when Sarah successfully treated the station administrator's prized Venusian vapor hound, which she immediately dubbed Fluffy, using nothing but a modified Earth dog whistle and some peanut butter. "This is unacceptable." Kaziktik burst into her clinic, waving a stack of holographic documents. "You're making a mockery of established veterinary science. Yesterday you prescribed a diet of crunchy earth leaves to a photosynthetic polymorph. You mean Mr. Salad?" Sarah didn't look up from where she was teaching an intern how to properly scratch behind the ears of a quantum phase-shifting puppy. "He's doing great, by the way. Turns out kale is a hit across the galaxy." The complaints started arriving faster than Sarah could feed her growing collection of earth lettuce. Kaziktik filed reports about everything from unsafe earth food practices to unnecessarily friendly bedside manner. The thing that really drove them over the edge, though, was Sarah's latest innovation, a universal translator specifically calibrated for pet vocalizations. "It's really quite simple," she explained to a group of fascinated vet students, while Kaziktik hovered in the doorway, antennae practically tied in knots with frustration. Whether it's an earth cat or a Betelgeusian quantum tiger, they all basically say the same things. "Watch." She activated the translator as a parade of different species pets made their various sounds. "Feed me. Feed me now. Why haven't you fed me? I was fed an hour ago, but I'm dying of starvation." "See?" Sarah grinned at her stunned audience. "Some things are truly universal." The success rates spoke for themselves. Sarah's primitive methods had achieved a 95% satisfaction rating among pet owners, and her waiting list now included beings from 3 neighboring star systems. She'd even started a weekly seminar called Earth Pets and You, Why Everything Just Wants Belly Rubs. Kaziktik's final complaint form was 16,000 pages long and included such gems as inappropriate use of food items in medical procedures and excessive application of what she calls the power of treats. The station administrator's response was to officially designate Sarah's clinic as the Gamma 9 Center for Interstellar Veterinary Cultural Exchange. They even gave her a bigger office right next to Kaziktik's. "Don't worry," Sarah told her fuming colleague as she hung up her new sign, featuring a smiling Earth hamster wearing a space helmet. "I'll teach you the secret Earth technique of why sometimes the best medicine is just telling them they're a good boy." Kaziktik's response was untranslatable, but it definitely wasn't good boy. 3 months after what station residents now called the Great Milkbone Scandal, Sarah stood in her newly expanded laboratory, proudly surveying the results of her most ambitious project yet. The room looked like someone had crashed an Earth pet store into a quantum physics lab, then sprinkled it with exotic alien spices. Shelves lined with colorful treat prototypes stretched from floor to ceiling, each section carefully labeled with holographic warning signs like "Caution may cause spontaneous gravity reversal in 0G gerbils," and "Warning, keep away from telepathic tabbies, they'll know you have them." "All right, everyone," she announced to her audience, which included not only station administrators and a very sheepish-looking Kaziktik, but also representatives from 3 major galactic pet food manufacturers and a delegation from the Interstellar Veterinary Board. After 3 months of extensive testing, 17 exploded prototypes, and 1 very memorable incident involving a levitating guinea pig, I present the first officially approved line of Earth-inspired, xenobiologically safe pet treats. She held up a treats bag decorated with cartoon Earth dogs wearing space helmets. "We're calling them Space Snackers. All the appeal of Earth treats, none of the addictive properties or interdimensional side effects." The symphony serpent, fully recovered and more iridescent than ever, coiled eagerly in its anti-gravity bubble nearby. Kaziktik had been required to withdraw it from this year's shows as part of their plea deal, but Sarah's rehabilitation program was showing promising results. "The secret," she continued, pulling out sample after sample from her coat pockets like a magician performing an endless trick, was combining Earth ingredients with local equivalents while accounting for quantum taste buds and multidimensional digestive systems. "We've developed an entire product line." She held up each treat bag in turn, the packaging featuring adorable cartoon versions of various species wearing spacesuits. Cosmic crunchies for crystalline cats, now with embedded light refraction technology that makes them sparkle in any spectrum. Quantum kibble for those interdimensional puppies who keep phase shifting during walkies. They follow them through dimensions, Plasma pops for energy-based pets, zero radiation leakage guaranteed, and my personal favorite. She pulled out a treat that seemed to exist in several places at once. The multi-snack for pets with probability-shifted mouths. It's simultaneously crunchy and chewy, depending on which universe you're observing it from. Several of the alien executives' appendages began writing furiously in their notepads. "And you're certain these are safe?" the station administrator's primary head asked, while their secondary head was already reaching for a sample. "Tested on over 50 species," Sarah confirmed, "plus each batch comes with a complete biochemical analysis that even Dr. Kadziktik approves of. Right, Doctor?" Kadziktik's antennae twitched. "The methodology is surprisingly robust, though I still maintain that the names are unnecessarily cute. Says the doctor who just approved nebula nibbles for gas giant guppies," Sarah teased. The announcement of the interspecies veterinary exchange program came a week later, complete with a curriculum that made several traditional veterinary professors faint. Sarah's primitive earth techniques were now required learning for all station veterinarians, with courses including Why Every Pet Eventually Acts Like an Earth Cat, a statistical analysis. The strategic application of baby talk across species boundaries. Belly rubs 101, a hands-on or tentacles-on approach. Advanced treat distribution theory. Understanding the universal appeal of laser pointers. And the surprisingly popular box-sitting Why Every Species Thinks Inside the Box. The waiting list for classes stretched into the next stellar cycle, and Sarah had to hire 3 assistants just to handle the enrollment paperwork. Her burrito-based allergy testing protocol had been officially added to the station's medical manual, though the formal name, the Chen method of xenobiological dietary assessment, made her laugh every time she heard it. The protocol had spawned an entire new field of study, with research papers sporting titles like The Role of Earth Guacamole in Identifying Multidimensional Digestive Disorders, and a comparative analysis of Taco Tuesday's effect on xenobiological treatment outcomes. The station's cafeteria had even started stocking earth foods specifically for veterinary use, with a special section labeled Medical-Grade Mexican Food for professional use only. Sarah had to admit, it was probably the first time in history that ordering a burrito required a medical license. "I still can't believe they named it after me," she said one evening, treating the symphony serpent for a minor case of scale sniffles, while Kadziktik took notes. "I was just trying not to waste my lunch. Your methods, while unorthodox, have proven..." Kadziktik seemed to struggle with the words, all 6 eyes blinking rapidly. "Effective. Though I maintain that using Earth Pizza to diagnose plasma puppy problems last week was taking things too far. Hey, it worked, didn't it? Mr. Sparky hasn't hiccuped fire since..." The symphony serpent gave a happy trill as Sarah applied the last of its medicine, its scales rippling with patterns that looked suspiciously like wagging puppies. "You know what the funny thing is," Sarah said, reaching for her newly approved treat bag. "All those complaints you filed actually helped, made me document everything properly, established testing protocols. We might have stayed stuck in our separate ways of doing things if you hadn't been so determined to prove me wrong." Kadziktik's antennae drooped slightly. "I may have been overzealous in my resistance to Earth methods, though I maintain that 7 PhDs should count for something." "They do," Sarah grinned, tossing a space snacker to the serpent, who caught it with perfect musical timing. "They count for 7 times the learning capacity when it comes to new techniques. Speaking of which," she pulled out a fresh medical pad. "Ready to learn about the ancient earth art of belly rubs?" Kadziktik sighed, but their antennae were twitching with what Sarah now recognized as barely suppressed amusement. "I suppose that would be academically valuable." "That's the spirit, see? Earth techniques aren't so bad." Sarah reached for the treat bag again. "Now, who wants a properly formulated, biochemically approved, completely legal space milk bone?" The symphony serpent's enthusiastic response set off every musical instrument in the clinic, while Kadziktik's long-suffering sigh harmonized perfectly in the background. "I'm adding this to my next research paper," Sarah announced cheerfully. "The Universal Language of Treats, a comprehensive study of cross-species bribery in veterinary practice." 7 PhDs, Kadziktik muttered, but they were already reaching for a treat to give to their pet. 7. 1 year later. The line outside Sarah's clinic stretched past 3 cargo bays, around the hydroponics garden, and nearly reached the station's main promenade. This wasn't unusual these days. What was unusual was the figure standing at the very end of the line, clutching a datapad and trying very hard to look inconspicuous. "Is that?" Sarah squinted at her security feed, then broke into a grin. "Computer, please tell Dr. Kaziktik they can use the staff entrance." 5 minutes later, her former nemesis stood in her office, antennae twitching nervously. "I wish to enroll in your Earth Veterinary Certification course." Sarah managed to keep a straight face for exactly 2.3 seconds before breaking into a wide smile. "I'm sorry, what was that? I couldn't hear you over the sound of 7 PhDs crying out in terror." "Please don't make this more difficult than it already is," Kaziktik sighed, but their antennae were quirking in what Sarah now recognized as suppressed amusement. "The waiting list for your clinic is 3 months long. My patients are starting to request transfers. Even the Symphony Serpent prefers your treatments now. I'm merely adapting to market demands." Sarah leaned back in her chair, which had been specially modified to accommodate everything from human posteriors to tentacle clusters. "Nothing to do with catching you sneaking into last week's Understanding Earth Puppy Dog Eyes, a strategic guide to interspecies manipulation seminar." All 6 of Kaziktik's eyes blinked simultaneously. "I was merely observing, for academic purposes." "Right, and I suppose you were taking notes on proper belly rub technique for academic purposes too?" "The application of physical comfort as a treatment modifier is a valid area of study." Sarah laughed and pulled up the course registration form. "Welcome aboard, Doctor. Though I should warn you, next week's practical lesson involves learning Earth pet names. Hope you're ready to start calling things Fluffy." The groan that emerged from Kaziktik's mandibles was probably audible in the next star system. These days they called her the Pet Whisperer of Gamma 9. Sarah thought the title was a bit much, but it did look good on the clinic's new sign, right under Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth Veterinary Specialist, and now offering traditional Earth belly rubs, all species welcome. Her research papers were required reading at the Galactic Veterinary Academy. The strategic application of Earth pet names in xenoveterinary practice had caused quite a stir, especially the chapter on why calling a Jovian gas whale Mr. Bubbles improved treatment outcomes by 47%. Kaziktik had even started a support group for recovering academic purists, though they insisted it was a collaborative research initiative exploring the integration of Earth methodologies with traditional xenoveterinary practices. The fact that they served Earth cookies at every meeting was purely coincidental. The Symphony Serpent had returned to shows, though now it performed what Kaziktik reluctantly admitted was an incredibly popular routine involving Earth dog tricks performed in zero gravity. The sight of a prestigious show pet playing fetch with a quantum tennis ball never failed to draw crowds. Sarah sat in her office late one night, finishing up patient notes while a variety of creatures dozed in their specialized habitats. The quantum puppy was sleep phase shifting again, appearing momentarily in random corners of the room before vanishing. The crystalline cat was purring at a frequency that made all the medical equipment vibrate slightly, and in the corner, a newly admitted Martian many-belly beast was discovering the joy of automated belly rub machines, all 17 of its stomachs rumbling contentedly. "You know," she said to no one in particular, watching as the Symphony Serpent sneaked another space snacker to the quantum puppy, "turns out the galaxy's pets aren't so different from Earth's. They all just want treats and belly rubs, even the ones with 17 bellies." Somewhere down the hall, she heard Kaziktik sneeze in a way that sounded suspiciously like 7 PhDs, and smiled.